Alright guys, so today I was kind of bored. It's winter, it's cold. It's going to be like negative 40 this week at some point with the wind chill. And obviously I've had no motivation to go out in the garage to do really anything. A couple projects have been on hold. I've been building a couple model cars. It's actually what I'm kind of working on down here today. But the same token, last night I got rid of a Turbo 350 that I had built a couple years back. Even though I didn't run it, why I got rid of it was because, well, I'd kind of rather have the money. Burn the hands better than two in the bush. So I had this one, and I'm going to rebuild it. This is the one that came out of the Pontiac. There wasn't really a whole lot wrong with the transmission. It was a torque converter. It was locking up pretty much in as soon as you put it under load or gear. So either going from park to drive to reverse, whatever. It would be locked up. And with the EFI, what was happening was the idle was dropping so much that the EFI couldn't correct for it fast enough and the car would die. So I took the transmission that was out of the olds, put that in the Pontiac, and this one has been sitting. And I took this apart at some point like last August, and I got a Turbo 350 from a buddy of mine who took it out of his Chevelle, and I took that apart, and I got pretty much two good transmissions here between these two benches, and I got a graveyard of Turbo 350 parts over there. And why I got a graveyard is parts are becoming harder to find. And unfortunately for me, the one thing that is hard to do is replacing bushings. So I tend to replace all the easy ones, and some of the harder ones, like on the inside of the transmission pumps, which these are really crucial to get in there straight. This one's actually kind of gouged up. I'm not going to use this pump. But these bearings, these bushings have to be set in there like perfect, and they're really hard to do. And I don't have that kind of experience. So I buy up cores and I keep parts that I can use. Why? Because, well, I don't have the capability to replace those bushings without screwing it up. I've tried in the past. Got really close, but it was really tight. I would have burned up the trans. So I ended up buying a core that had a good pump in it. I took it apart, and sometimes it's a toss-up, but you can find cores for about 40, 50 bucks. And I got more than enough parts here now to be able to do that. So with this one, everything was pretty good. This is the one that came out of the Pontiac. The one that came out of the Chevelle actually had B&M shift kit, which is right here. A couple of dead giveaways are, it's got this gold separator plate, and on the it's got a transfer slot in one of these plates. Usually the gold one's a dead giveaway that it's a B&M. That's the way that B&M does it versus like Transgo or Fairbanks or some of the other companies. Now, the actual term shift kit can only be used by Transgo. So usually you get like shift reprogrammer, names like that from B&M and other companies. But this is a B&M kit. I'm going to end up replacing the valve body gaskets. I do have to make a couple of cuts, but I have plenty of valve body gaskets. I got plenty of lip seals that are still in good shape for the pump, and pistons I should say. I got pump sealing rings in here. I got all the common bushings that I normally replace in here. And then the other thing too is why I'm kind of combining parts is because some of these transmissions had different designs for different reasons. Like on this one that came out of the Chevelle, this piston has lugs, which makes it really hard to remove material to fit 5 clutch stacks. So most commonly you get like 4 clutch stacks. So, you know, what you call your clutch stack is you got clutch, steel, clutch, steel, clutch, steel, clutch, steel. This one actually has 5 and a wave plate. But we're going to cut down the piston. I'm going to take it over to my buddy's, put it on his lathe. I think you usually have to remove about 120 thousandths. And usually we go ahead and add the clearance, because usually the way you do the clearance on most of those is through an upper, like a selective top plate. These come with different thicknesses, and I have a nice selection of that. But anytime I cut the pistons down, we go ahead and factor in the clearances into the clutch pack and the piston. So I've done a few of these. I've learned a lot. And then the other part is, on this direct drum, I think it's the direct drum. I always confuse them with that or the forward drum. I think the forward drum's the other one I showed you guys. So on this one, so this roller, this sprag here, what happens is the transmission spins in an opposite way when going from first to second, and it locks up. This is a really weak point, and at a certain horsepower level, these things will actually grenade and go through the transmission and destroy things. So a common upgrade is to replace this whole assembly with a 36 element roller sprag. A cheap upgrade is to just replace this outer race with a hardened one, but a lot of people say most of the ones out there aren't the greatest quality. And unfortunately, some of the companies don't really sell just the race. Some of the better companies, they really want to replace the whole unit, which is what you should do. I've ran an outer race before. The transmission that's actually in the Pontiac right now has just a replaced race. I didn't have any issues on that. But again, that's one of the other common areas that guys upgrade to the Turbo 350. And then also another area is the center support. The 700R4 center support will fit into a Turbo 350. It's wider. Big problem with the 400 or the 350s is they beat up bushings bad, and some of that reason is because it's a pretty compact transmission with a lot more parts. Now compare the 350 to a 400. The 400 has less parts, but they're bigger. The 350 has more parts and it's smaller. So a lot of these parts don't have a wide margin of bite for the bearings, I guess you should say, or an area for them to ride on. And there's common upgrades like certain different style bushings. Like for the Ford FMX transmission, there's a bushing that you throw in one of these drum assemblies and it's a lot wider, it's better. And it's just little things like that. For this one, we're just going to keep it pretty simple. In stock form, the Turbo 350 is good for about a little over 400 horsepower without having to really go crazy. And that's usually the most common rebuild you're probably going to run across out there when you take your Turbo 350 to a transmission shop and you get a bench job done. You tell them, oh, maybe making like 400, 450 horsepower. You're going to cut down the pistons, add extra clutches, add a good shift kit in there. You know, obviously new modulator valve, stuff like that. So this is only going to cost us maybe 150, 180 bucks with new clutches, depending on what I go, because I'm going to need to get new steels too. Those aren't cheap. So I'm pretty much just going to get new clutches, new steels, put the shift kit back in this, and we're going to put this back on the Pontiac and see how it runs. And the transmission that's in the Pontiac, probably just going to have it as a backup for either the Olds or the Pontiac itself, which that transmission that's in the Pontiac will still work in the Olds, but it's borderline if it's going to live behind the Olds and the abuse that we're going to be using it for, but it'll be there if need be. So this is the next project I got going on. I'm going to kind of focus on here. So guys, keep subscribing, keep watching. Copper Cutlass on YouTube, Copper's Garage on Facebook. Thanks guys.